Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to talk about regressions. So regression is when you take a table of data and put it into your calculator and then use your calculator to represent that data as an equation. There's several types of regression. Today we're going to focus on quadratic regression, but the process I show you will work for any type, whether it's linear, quadratic, exponential, logarithmic. The process is exactly the same. So I have on the screen here a question, and I also have a calculator. You absolutely need a calculator to do this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to reset the calculator. So if you don't know how to reset the calculator, you need to do second and then plus sign. And then we're going to hit reset number 7. We're going to reset all RAM, and we're going to reset. So 712 is the buttons you push. And the reason why we do that is because there's some settings that get changed every time you do regression. So after you reset, we're going to go to mode, and we're going to make sure that stat diagnostics is on. Regression falls under the statistics category, and statistics, stat diagnostics needs to be on to do regression. And also you want to double check if you have a TI-84 Plus that the stat wizards is also on. Most calculators have that option, but not all of them. All right, and then you can leave the screen by hitting second, then the quit button. All right, so now let's look at the question. It says Company X tried selling widgets at various prices to see how much profit they would make. The following table shows the widget selling price, X, and the total profit earned at that price, Y. Write a quadratic regression equation for this set of data, rounding all coefficients to the nearest tenth. Using this equation, find the profit to the nearest dollar for the selling price of $6.75, $6.75. So these questions are all going to be pretty much the same setup. The only difference that's going to change is what's highlighted here. In this case, it says a quadratic regression. So I need to put all this data in our calculator. So to do that, we're going to hit Stat, and we're going to pick Edit. And we're going to put all of the prices in the first column as L1. We're going to hit Enter after each one. Oops. And luckily we only have 5 numbers here. Sometimes when you do this, you'll end up with like 20 numbers in each column. And then for profit, we're going to put those in L2. We're not going to include any extra symbols. All right. So now that we've put in all the data, we're going to quit this screen by doing second, then the button next to quit. Now, before I show you how to do this, I want to see what this data looks like. So we're going to look at the data by doing second, y equals, and we're going to turn on plot number 1. And it's going to ask what type of plot do we want. We want a scatter plot. When you have an X and a Y value represented in a table and you have a bunch of data, the best way to look at that is usually a scatter plot. So that's the first option. Our X list is L1 and our Y list is L2. And our marks can be squares. Now, when I hit graph, nothing's going to show up, or we might see a little bit. The best option after you're done doing second stat plot is to hit zoom and go down to number 9. I remember I said regression has to do with statistics. So let's do the zoom that says ZoomStat. So when I push that, now you can see the 5 dots. Now, no wonder they picked quadratic regression for this, because if you look at the dots, they're making a U shape, an upside down U. And quadratic graphs make a U shape. So quadratic regression would probably be the best representation for this. So now how do we actually do the quadratic regression? So let's quit this screen. We're going to do stat, and we're going to go over to calc. You're going to see a lot of regressions here. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there's tons of different regressions. We have linear, quadratic, cubic, quartic, linear, ln, exponential, power, logistic. Now they said they wanted quadratic, so we're going to do number 5, QuadReg. And then it's going to ask, what's the X list you want to use? Well, our X list is L1, our Y list is L2. If you need to change those, they're all listed on the first 6 buttons of the calculator keyboard, right? You see number 4 in blue, it says L4. So if I need to change it to L4, I would hit second the number 4. You leave your frequency list blank, you leave your store reg EQ blank, and then you go to calculate, and it's going to give you all the pieces of data for the equation. So it tells you this is the standard form for a quadratic equation, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And then it's telling you the values to plug in for a, b, and c. Now our question on the screen here wanted us to do coefficients to the nearest tenth. So when I type this equation, I'm going to make sure everything is done to the nearest tenth. So negative 1752. Now after I put in the a value, I need to type x squared. And then plus 27725.65x. And then plus, actually minus, because c is negative, 69361.67. So that's the equation for this. The calculator says this is the best equation to represent all those dots. And now they want to know, what is the profit for $6.75? So $6.75. Now we already have that value in the table, but they want us to use the equation to make this prediction, not something that's already happened. So we need to take this equation and we need to plug in 6.75. So to do that, I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to type the equation we just got. Negative 1752.1 x squared plus 27725.65x minus 69361.67. Now, just because I'm curious, I'm going to hit the graph button. This equation, let's see how good it did at hitting all the dots. Look at that. It hit the dots pretty perfectly. So now we're going to go to the table and we're going to find 6.75 as our x, right? They want a price of 6.75. And there's a problem with that because our table counts up by 1. So the last calculator thing I'm going to show you is how to change what the x values are on your table here. So we're going to go to second table set. And we're going to tell it we want our table to start at 6.75. We're not going to change anything else here. We want our table to start at 6.75. So now when you do second table, there it is. And I know there's a number here, but if we hover over it, we'll get the full number. So we can answer the question correctly. Final answer, it says rounded to the nearest dollar would be 37956, which notice is not the same value that the 6.75 was matched up with earlier. They want you to use the equation to answer this part, not the data that we already have collected. So I'm going to submit that and I'm going to get it correct. So the process that I just showed you is going to be the same for every regression. The equation that you will get will end up changing. You know, if I do exponential regression, the process is the same. It's just the equation that shows up at the top here will be different. In this case, it's an exponential equation. So just make sure you're using the correct equation and you're using the correct regression. Now you'll notice when we did the regression, we skipped the other values on the screen. This one has an r squared and an r. The last one just had an r squared. R and r squared tell you how well the equation fits the data. So notice I just did exponential regression for this data, and our r value is 0.5. 1 is perfect. -1 is also perfect. 0 is the worst. So 0.5 is not a great fit. No wonder they didn't pick exponential to represent this data. The last one had an r squared value of like really, really high. I think it was like 0.9 something. So I think I can get it back on the screen pretty easy here. All right, yeah, 0.999 for an r squared. So even if I square root that to get the r value, it's still going to be 0.9, which is an excellent fit. And we saw that on our graph here. It's an excellent fit. So if the question asks about the fit of the data, that's where you use the r squared or the r value. Otherwise, you won't be asked those variables. You'll just be asked for a and b. So that's today's video on regression. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.